Chapter 22, Fifth Declension. Chapter 22 covers the following: the formation of the fifth declension, uses of the ablative case, and at the end of the lesson we'll review the vocabulary, which you should memorize in this chapter. There is one important rule to remember in this chapter. Fifth declension represents E-stem nouns, which are for the most part feminine in gender. Fifth declension. Hooray, hooray! Latin only has 5 declensions, so this is the last declension we'll study. Once you've mastered fifth declension, you've learned everything you need to know about Latin nouns in this class. Fifth declension consists of nouns characterized by long E. This declension is a unique concoction which the Romans brewed up at one point in their history and which did not survive long. As Latin after classical antiquity began evolving into the various Romance languages, this E-stem category of nouns was conflated into other declensions and disappeared as a separate grammatical category. Here are the endings for fifth declension nouns. Let's recite them together. Ace, ei, em, a, ace, arum, abus, ace, abus. Note the dominance of E, often long E, which is without doubt the most significant feature of this declension, though the long E produces no mandatory long marks, meaning no forms are distinguished by macrons in this declension. A close look at the endings shows why it was easy for the post-classical Romans to subsume fifth declension into third, for instance. Fifth and third look a lot like each other. In fact, the majority of fifth declension endings look like a long E stem with third declension endings appended onto it. That should make memorizing fifth declension all the easier. The one exception is the genitive case, ei and arum, which resembles second declension, not third. Note also that the ending ace shows up in 3 places: the nominative singular, the nominative plural, and the accusative plural. While it may seem on the surface that will make distinguishing these forms difficult, in practice, that's actually not the case. The fact that these forms are often accompanied by a first-second declension adjective will help distinguish them. For instance, if we take the noun race, which is fifth declension and means thing, and attach the adjective litus, which is first-second declension and means happy, the result is, in the nominative singular, a noun-adjective cluster, race lita, a happy thing as subject. But if we make that form plural, it changes to race litae, happy things, as the subject. In the accusative plural, while again race does not change, litus does, this time to litas, producing race litas, happy things as direct object. So in practice, the different uses of race were actually easy for the Romans to distinguish when it had an adjective attached to it. And here is a noun in the fifth declension. Spes, spei, feminine, meaning hope. Let's recite its declension together. Spes, spei, spei, spem, spei. Space, sperum, spebus, space, spebus. And here is the translation of space. There are no surprises here, and nothing to comment on, except that, now that we've studied fifth declension, we're done with noun formation in Latin. Yay! Well, almost. We'll have to do a little bit of housework later on, but we're 98% done. And I can't speak for you, but 98% done sounds awfully good to me. To conclude this chapter, Mr. Wheelock does something very wise. He stops and reviews the uses of the ablative case. From an English speaker's perspective, the usage of the ablative case in Latin breaks down into two major categories. Those instances when the ablative is accompanied by a preposition, and those when it isn't. The balance is far from equal. The majority of ablatives have prepositions. A construction will abbreviate as OP, object of the preposition. As for example, in locis illis, meaning in that region. If the noun locis were underlined, and I asked you what case and why, you should answer ablative OP in. But there are two major exceptions to this rule, one involving the preposition ab and the other cum. Let's look at cum first. When cum signals accompaniment, it imports the meaning along with, that is, hand in hand with, as in cum amicis, meaning with friends, or nobiscum, with us. This use of cum, accompaniment, which requires the preposition, and whose object is always a person or personage, is a different grammatical construction and must be differentiated from the ablative of manner, which also uses the preposition cum, but in a very different sense, in the fashion or manner of. For example, cum ira, with anger, that is, angrily, or cum spe, with hope, in other words, hopefully. The prepositional phrase functions adverbially. It shows the manner in which some action happened. That means the object of cum, in an ablative of manner, has to be some sort of abstract noun, such as courage, speed, or hesitation. It can't be a person, like with the ablative of accompaniment. The second major exception to the rule, that ablatives which have a preposition in front of them should be diagnosed as OP plus whatever the preposition is, involves the preposition ab. If ab means from, then yes, it's okay to say OP ab, as in ab patria, from the fatherland. But when ab functions as a personal agent and means by, that is, it's connected, as it must be when it functions this way, with the passive verb form, as in monitus ab magistro suo, meaning having been warned by his teacher, then you can't say OP ab, because you must indicate the grammatical usage of ab here as initiating a personal agent construction. In sum, it's never correct to say OP cum. You must always distinguish between manner or accompaniment. Nor is it right to say OP ab if ab means by and is associated with the passive verb form. Only when the preposition means away from is it right to say OP ab. And here are uses of the ablative we've encountered so far which do not employ a preposition. First, the ablative of means, meaning with, using, or by means of. Here the noun must be a tool or instrument, for instance, igne, with fire, or literi suis, with their letter. Another use of the ablative which does not require a preposition is the ablative of time, or point in time. It's equivalent to the use of the English prepositions in, within, on, or at. And the noun used must be a unit of time, such as temporibus istis, meaning in those times, or aitate mea, meaning at my age. The ablative of separation also does not require a preposition, and implies from, for example, nos servitute liberate, meaning free us from slavery, or just like Latin, English can also use no preposition to indicate separation. For example, stultis sapientia carent, meaning fools lack wisdom. And finally, the ablative of manner, under certain circumstances, that is, when there's an adjective associated with the noun, can also utilize no preposition. Whether or not an ablative of manner has a preposition, it always means with, and conveys an adverbial sense, such as magno cum amore, or just magno amore, meaning with great love, that is, very lovingly, or nullo cum metu, or just nullo metu, meaning with no fear, that is, fearlessly. Let's turn that around and take a short quiz on the use of the ablative. I'll give you the English translation. You tell me how Latin would express the same idea. Let's start with from. How does Latin say from when it doesn't involve a special verb? That's right. Latin would use one of its prepositions that means from, ab, ex, or de. This is the construction Wheelock calls the ablative of place from which. Next, how does Latin express with in the sense of along with? Yes, it uses the preposition cum. This is the ablative of accompaniment. Next, how does Latin express in, as in inside a place? Of course, it uses in. So if I underlined the noun associated with this preposition and said what case and why, you would say ablative, op, object of the preposition, in. But what about in another sense, in as in 1 hour? Here Latin uses no preposition. This is the ablative of point in time. And what about by, in the sense of something being done by someone? In that instance, Latin uses ab, because this is the ablative of personal agent, the construction always associated with the passive verb form. And what about with in another sense, that is, with in the sense of in the fashion of? There Latin uses the preposition cum. This is the ablative of manner. However, if the noun has an adjective associated with it, the cum becomes optional. And how about from in another sense? From when it's associated with special verbs like cario or libero. There again, Latin uses no preposition. This is the ablative of separation. And what about about? How does Latin express about? Here Latin does use a preposition, de. So the noun associated with this preposition would be diagnosed as op, object of the preposition, de. And finally, into. How does Latin say into with the ablative? Oh, evil teacher, that's a trick question. Into doesn't use the ablative. To say into, Latin uses in plus the accusative. Bad, nasty teachers who ask trick questions like that should be paid more. And don't forget, sub can do the same. It can take both the accusative and the ablative. Have we left out any prepositions which we've covered in the vocabulary and which take the ablative? There is one. Sine. It means without. But that's it. That's the end of the quiz on the ablative, and the grammar for this chapter, and the grammar for the entire term. Congratulations! You're halfway through learning Latin. Now let's look at the vocabulary for this chapter. The first word is dies, dei, masculine, meaning day. It's a fifth declension noun. 5 in parentheses is the abbreviation for fifth declension. This is one of the rare nouns in fifth declension that's masculine in gender. Most are feminine. Indeed, some classical authors treat dies as a feminine noun. We get English words like diurnal, diary, and journal from this word. All these English derivatives have a sense of day underlying them. The next word is fides fidei, feminine, meaning faith, trust, trustworthiness, fidelity, or protection. It's a fifth declension, feminine noun. Please translate and parse. That is, give me the grammar of the phrase cum fide. That's right, with faith, or faithfully. It's an ablative of manner. The next word is ignis, masculine, meaning fire. It's a third declension, I stem noun. That's right, it's parasyllabic. So what's its genitive plural? Good, ignium. The next word is modus modi, masculine, meaning measure, bound or boundary, limit, manner, method, or mode. It's a second declension masculine noun. Often underlying this noun is the sense of well measured. Thus we get words like moderate, modest, and commodious. Do you know what commodious means? It means roomy or full of space. The next word is res rei, feminine, meaning thing, matter, business, or affair. It's a fifth declension feminine noun. This is a very important word in Latin, arguably the most important word in fifth declension. The data suggest that it is single-handedly responsible for keeping fifth declension alive during the classical period and preventing it from collapsing into one of the more popular and well-used declensions. Res means thing in the sense of possession versus thing in its more abstract sense, as in a good thing, bonum, which is a neuter substantive. Instead, res as thing means things you can hold in your hand, and thus we get words like reality or real estate, meaning the tangible possessions you own. What do you think the English verb reify means? That's right, to treat something as a real thing or an object. The next word is based on res. It is res publica, rei publicae, feminine, meaning state, commonwealth, or republic. The noun res is fifth declension, and the adjective publica is first. This was the word the Romans used for the type of government they had between 510 and 31 BCE. A state based on a shared treasury. In other words, a common wealth. The English word commonwealth is a direct translation of this Latin term. What would be the dative singular of res publica? Yes, rei publicae, meaning for the republic. And the accusative plural? Good, res publicas. The next word is spei, feminine, meaning hope. It's a fifth declension feminine noun. The abbreviation ace is an abbreviation for fifth declension, which you'll see often in dictionaries and vocabulary lists. The next word is incertus, incerta, incertum, meaning uncertain or doubtful. It's a first-second declension adjective. This word is the opposite of certus which we already encountered in chapter 20. The next word is a verb, eripio, eripere, eripui, ereptum, meaning snatch away or take. It's a third conjugation io verb. We've already discussed eripio and its vowel gradation in chapter 21. The next word is inquit, meaning says or said. It's a defective verb. Defective means the verb is lacking essential forms, like coepi, which doesn't have present tense forms. Defective verbs can be missing persons, numbers, tenses, or either of the two voices. In the case of inquit, all we really have is inquit. And with that, it's impossible to tell what conjugation the verb belongs to, third, third IO, or fourth. Roman authors in the classical period used this verb almost exclusively in the third person singular, in the same way the English word quoth is restricted to the same person in number. There are, however, some Roman authors who use a first-person form of inquit, in quam, meaning I say or said, but they're few and far between. To make matters even more difficult, it's not entirely clear what tense inquit is, since it has both a present and a past sense. That's why the translation is both say and said. Moreover, it's used almost exclusively in one context, where a Roman author is directly quoting another's words. The next word is a very important Latin verb, tolo tolere sustuli sublatum, meaning raise, lift up, take away, remove, or destroy. It's a third conjugation verb. This verb involves another technical grammatical term, composite, meaning that two verbs have been put together to produce one. The third principal part, sustuli, comes from another verb, one closely related, a compound of tolo, sub-tolo, meaning, literally, raised up from under. The reason that the compound of tolo has been used in the perfect will become clear when we study another verb, pharaoh, later in the class. At that same point later in the class, we'll also discuss the fourth principal part of this verb, sublatum, which is based on the perfect passive participle of the verb pharaoh. There we'll see it's not as irregular as it looks. The next word is medius, media, medium, meaning middle or middle of. It's a first-second declension adjective. It means literally in Latin, the middle part of something. So it's used by the Romans to indicate, for instance, the center of a city, which in Latin would be media urbs, or on the middle of a mountain, that is, halfway up the mountain, which would be in medio monte. Mons montes masculine means mountain. Note that medio here does not mean the middle mountain, the mountain in between two others, but on the middle part of the mountain. The next word is quondam, meaning formerly or once. It's an adverb. This is once in the sense of once upon a time, not once in the sense of happening only one time. And the last word in this vocabulary list, indeed the last word you have to learn at all in this class, is allo, allere, allui, altum, meaning nourish, support, sustain, increase, or cherish. It's a third conjugation verb. Note in particular the third principal part, allui, as if the verb were second conjugation. The basic sense of this verb is to grow or cause to grow, and thus its fourth principal part, altum, meant literally to the Romans having been grown, like a plant that's thriving, which of course will be tall. Thus there's a sense of height or altitude associated with the base al, but the sense having been grown can be seen not only from the bottom up, but the top down. In other words, looking down from the top of the plant, in which case it has a sense of deep. Thus the neuter substantive, altum, means the deep, that is, the sea. Latin and English share this same idiom. How would Latin say, to be nourished? That's the present passive infinitive, isn't it? And this is third conjugation, so the answer is ali. And before we quit, let's look at a few interesting derivatives from this verb. What do alumni do for a university? They sustain it, of course, and make it grow tall. Hint, hint. And What part of your body nourishes you? Your alimentary canal, that is, your digestive tract. And finally, what is alimony, literally? Yes, of course, it's the financial nourishment provided for a divorced spouse. And that's it. That's the end of the presentation for Chapter 22. Does the rule that was cited at the beginning of this chapter now make sense to you? If not, please review this presentation. If so, please proceed to the next slide. For the next class exercise, please print out a copy of the practice and review sentences for Chapter 22. You'll find them on page 103 of Wheelock's text. Multa perfecimus, o discipuli cari, et plura futura quoque perficiemus. Valete.